Good day, my fellow YouTubers. Alright, we have here Scion Xb automatic transmission fluid drain and flush. Right now I got the car up in the ramps. I already removed the driver's side under skid plate cover. Half of it requires a 10mm bolt. That's the part that I removed. Middle bolt right here. You got two bolts. We'll take out one in the middle, which is that one, and one over here as well that's dangling, and two more up here. But as you can see, one snapped, but the other one managed to get out. This is my second time doing a flush, and when you're ready to secure the bolts, don't over tighten them, just snug them so that way you don't snap off one of the remaining bolts up there. Anyway, purchased about a good 9 years ago a Bnm Transmission Cooler. Right there, easy access in the front. Put it right in front of the condenser. And that's the smallest one, about 11 inch by 9. I'll see if I'll try to find the product. It should be out there still circulating in the internet. Bnm Transmission Cooler. See if I'll put it in the description for you guys. And right over here, hooked it up. Try to position it for you so you can see it. Coming out of the transmission, we have two tubes, one inlet and one outlet. Now, following from the radiator, of course you got your bottom hose there for the radiator. That'll be right there. Your bottom hose is nice and cold since it's nice and cold enough. So following this, you have one right there for the outlet. So that outlet originally connects to over here, okay, on that one right there. So what I did is connect the outlet of the radiator for the transmission line right there. It's hard to see it with my camera here. Well, hopefully you can see it right there. That's the outlet, and then right across the left side, that is the inlet. So that way hot transmission fluid goes in there, gets cooled, coming out, that's where it comes out. So now with this outlet hose, I connect it to the front of the cooler, and then the return cooler is exiting out through here. Alright, exiting out through here from the front. Okay, just route it up what you can. And that goes right into the return, which is the input for the transaxle transmission. Alright. So then again, we have here, this is your outlet, okay, from the bottom right there next to the cooler part of the, because this side of the section of radiator is already cooled. So that's how your transmission fluid gets cooled down. So that's going to be your outlet. Feed it down to the inlet of your cooler from the condenser, and then the outlet will come out. Go through here, route it, and it will go into your return into the cooler. So then this is your out from the transmission. As you can see, I haven't even touched it. Transmission's right there. Alright, follow that out, That's gonna go into the left side of the radiator. Input. Cools down, come out, go over here, and it's gonna get more cool down, and then outlet, go back to here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drain the pan first. Once it's all drained, then I remove all the bolts and then clean the pan nice and clean with brake fluid, and clean the magnets as well. Then take the filter out, put the new filter in, put the 3 bolts, sliding snug tightly, not too much, go there, 3 thin bolts, and put the gasket, remaining bolts, and it will be nice and snug as well. Then I'll fill up the transmission 3 quarts and change. Then I'm going to come down the vehicle. I'm going to loosen up this hose right here, which is the outlet coming into the radiator. I'm going to loosen this hose, and I'm going to put the hose dangling inside the gallon jug. Then start the car up, and I'll monitor the gallon fluid, which is getting close to like 3 quarts. Then I'll shut off the engine, and then I'll put another 2 or 3 quarts, because I have a total of 8 quarts, and that should be enough for a good flush. Capacity wise is 7 quarts and change, but this transmission is nice and red enough as it is. You'll see it once I drain it. Heat is the #1 failure for this transmission. I mean, all transmissions don't like heat. I had bad experiences with automatic transmissions because of heat. So now with the added transmission cooler, she's shifting beautiful, and I'll show you with the scan tool I have right here, she's operating average at 158 to 160, give or take the temperature outside, how much you've been driven, which is nice and undercooled perfectly, nice and running cool. And what else? That's about it. So I'll guide you through the rest of the process. You'll see what's going on. Okay, we have our 3/8 Torx 10mm. This is going to take. Put it in there and give it a whirl. Loosen it up. Okay, and once you're done with the draining, definitely got to put in a new crush washer, so that way it'll seal it up nice and tight with no leaks. Anyway, I got myself a nice new transmission oil pan and plug. This baby has its moments to start leaking it, and I over tightened it, but as you can see, she's starting to come out. Alright, I'm going to drain it out. You see how she's nice and beautifully red. So that's the way your transmission's got to look like, my fellow YouTubers, for my nice red box drivers. That way you avoid costly transmission problems and your transmission shifting beautifully with no brown varnish. Brown varnish is the result of heat. Keep that baby underneath 160, not underneath 160, about 180. Service manual says average temperature, I think it was 140 something to 185, close to 190, almost the temperature of the engine. But I like to keep it nice and cool, and it's just beautiful. So alright, I'm going to drain the remainder of the oil. Now you see how the color looks like. Okay, almost drained. I'm going to start from the back bolts, little by little, and then slowly opening up, so that way drain from the back downward and then get everything out. So little by little, crisscross. And I like to put my bolts in the same location the way I removed them. Ever since I did my transmission, my first transmission flush, and this is my third one, I like to put things back where it was from factory installation, so that way bolt memory, whatever you call it. I may be a little psychotic with this, but so far I had no issues with these bolts, and I all fingered them tight, threaded them in nice with no problems, and they call for 69 70-inch pounds. So you can see it takes very little to tighten. Alright, so I'll remove these babies, and then we pry it out from the back little by little and drain the rest of the fluid. We're going to be using 10mm 1/4-inch drive. Be using these bolts to remove and install. Okay, started removing the bolts, alternate sides. As you can see, I placed them right there where they belong. And working on this last towards the end, it's starting to now tip over down the pan. I'm gonna hold my right hand over here, or whatever dominant hand you use to loosen your bolts. Support your pan there, so that way you don't stress out those small little thin bolts removing them. So I'm gonna be holding this pan and removing these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts left. Once I got these 5 bolts left, then I'll slowly, with my hand that's being supported, drain the remaining oil, tilting downward into that pan right there. Alright, got all the bolts out while still holding the pan. Now I'm going to slowly tilt it downward. As you can see, got the remaining bright red fluid going down. Easy does it. Now, normally, since I'm not going to be using this pan, I ordered a nice new one, because it looks like that bolt, I've been torquing it a lot lately, and I don't want to risk over tightening it more. And I think it calls for maybe, I'm guessing, I don't know, probably 37 foot-pounds, give or take. And it started, even with a new thrust washer, and it still leaked out a little bit by little. So I had to torque just more, inch by, little by little, until she stops leaking. So right now, what I would do is take off the gasket, brake clean this baby out, get some couple of rags, clean the pan real good with brake clean, and your magnets as well. There's 2 magnets right there. Clean the magnet, brake clean. There's the remaining thing right there. There's 1, 2, 3 bolts there. Take them out. And once you take the filter out, there's more oil coming out, so be careful. Position the pan, drain it out. And I'll show you the next process for putting in the new filter with the new O-ring. Okay, got those 1, 2, 3 bolts. Remember, I forgot to mention this too. If this is your first time doing this transmission drain, maybe if you're interested with a flush, but the transmission drain and filter, remember the force that you used to remove the bolts. That way, more or less, you put the same amount of force to tighten. These guys are strictly aluminum. They're very delicate. You can strip these threads if you tighten it beyond. So, extra cautious. I'm going to take out this pan right now, and you're going to see there's going to be some more fluid coming out. Alright. nice and easy to make a mess. Alright. Double check, make sure that the gasket, the O-ring is removed. Sometimes it gets stuck up there in the valve body. You'll see that the O-ring is right there, attached to the filter strainer. Alright, that's that. Going to put the new strainer on, new O-ring, and then tighten up the 3 bolts. Remember, snug. Once it's contact the base, maybe less than a quarter of a turn, just to feel that it's nice and snug, so that way you don't strip it, and at the same time prevent any air suction leak from the valve body pump to the actual filter, because it's got to be also nice and snug, so that way not creating any suction leak or whatever, and non-filtered oil because of not tightening those 3 bolts tight. So nice and snug, just to feel that it's just right, you have no problems. Alright, my toaster YouTuber guys, got my pan set up right here. That's the old one. Clean out the metal, manics right there. And when you guys ready to do this transmission change, take your filter, take your filter out and make sure it's the right part, obviously. Your gasket, lay it out, put heavy books on top of it. That way, once you're ready to do the change, your gasket will retain its memory nice and flat. No issues with installation. And you have small bolt hole starters to hold the gasket in place. You got 1, 2, 3, 4 on all corners. And this is your O-ring. That's our part number. Comes with the thrust washer, O-ring, and our strainer filter. So I'm going to position this filter with the O-ring on that. O-ring goes in there nice and secured. Oil it up with the transmission fluid. Move it up. Push it up right on top of there, nice and snug, tight, all the way top. Can go no more in. And then we'll secure it with 3 bolts, nice and snug. Okay. Good thing I checked out the strainer. Be careful, my guys. There was an extra O-ring on the kit on the side. When I actually looked at the strainer ready to put in the O-ring on the actual strainer intake tube, there was already an O-ring installed. So check. Only requires 1 O-ring. You coat it and then you swivel it back and forth, so that way it will slide right into the intake of the valve body, and hold it in place because it'll eventually slide right out. And secure it with your finger with 1 bolt, so that way it stays in place. Get the other 2, and according to the service manual, it's 8 foot-pounds for these guys. And the transmission bolts for the 19 of them all the way around is 69 inch-pounds. So 8 foot-pounds. These are pretty long bolts. So this one goes on the bottom right here. Thread them in. Make sure they thread in nice. No resistance. Once you get it all hand tight, 8 foot-pounds, just nice and snug. Don't go crazy. I have a torque wrench that goes that below, so I'll just make sure they're nice and snug. 1/8 of a turn once it contacts the base. Should be good. Little judgment. Then the rest, I'll put the pan, secure it with the 4 bolts, with the starter bolts. I'm going to feed the bolt right through the pan, position it. Of course, I'm going to clean all of this out, the mating of it, make it nice and super dry. So I'm going to put brake clean on the rag, sharp rag, and clean all the mating surfaces. transmission pan where it goes, and I gotta do it nice and quick because you can see it's still bleeding out, and it'll touch the mating surface over there. So once I got that nice and clean, right away I'll try to install it quick because I like to have a nice dry contact, so that way it'd be nice and leak proof. As you saw from my start of the video, the pan was actually nice and dry with no residual leaks. Alright, get ready to put the pan gasket on the pan, 4 bolts, starter thread, and I'll position it up. Alright, my bread boxers, my toaster, guys, we got our gasket already in place with the starter bolts. Like I told you before, they're very small in diameter, so snug them in with the bolt. You got one there, one over there, one there. So I'll position this gasket right there with one hand, and then I just start feeding in the 4 bolts halfway in. Once I got them in, then I'll put them up snug and then feed the other bolts one by one. Okay, so you can see I got one here already, one on the other side here, one down over here, and one over here. Only a couple threads in, so that way I could still move around, so I could position and thread the bolts nice and easily by hand, so there's no cross threading involved. Make sure all of them feed in nice and smooth with your hand. If you feel any resistance, back off and do it again until all of them are nice and threaded in. I got my bolts right here, so I'll line them up one by one. Okay, baby, I got all of my bolts hand snugged, all of them. They threaded in nice and smooth with no binding. Got my 1/4 inch drive, 10 millimeter, I believe. 10 millimeter. I'm gonna start with the tabs where they got the small hole for the thread bolt starters to position the gasket. I'm gonna start here. That's one. Then over here, it's the other. Then down here, okay, and one up here. All right, and I'm gonna start tying them little by little, all of them, and then going around. This only calls for, like I said, I think it's 69 inch-pounds. So I'll go all the way around once I feel it touching the actual pan. So I'll stop, and then I'll go around a couple of times, just a small little inch. Well, a small little touch on each side. And that's very important not to over torque these guys. And then over here as well. Okay. Alright. But I'm using just my thumb right on the head of the ratchet. Like I said, this is my third flush on this beautiful toaster right here. And she's running with nice fresh blood all the time, and no signs of overheating. Just got this new scanner tool from Altel, hooked it up, and I did that before. I believe I took the temperature of the transmission I was driving, and I'll show you the results right there. And then once I break in this baby and drive around, let's see how she is with the temperature again. But that transmission cooler is definitely an added plus for all vehicles. If you have the room to install it, highly recommend you do it. That way you avoid good old $1,500 transmission repairs. I ain't in the budget for that. Yep, and just do it tight little by little. And once we fill up our thing, we warm it up. Of course, I'll show you guys. I'm gonna have to disconnect that hose so I can flush while the engine's running for a couple of seconds and then shut her off, so that way I don't fry the transmission pump inside that pan. Once I get a good, almost a gallon and change flush, I'm good. That way I'll save enough for the other 3 quarts that go inside the pan. Okay, that's about it. I'll double check to make sure that's nice and tight. And there's my ratchet right here. Alright. Yep, she's good. I'll check it once, make sure everything is good, no leaks. Once it's that, then I'll do the flush. I'll do the flush first, and then it should be good. There should be no leaks anyway. We'll see how it goes. Okay, getting ready to fill in tranny fluid inside the pan. Everything nice and snug. We got our indicator right here on the side. And in case you guys are wondering, this is the baby I'm using. Go check out their specs, their website. They're very impressive. That's why my 3rd oil change transmission on this baby. I had this car, I say about 11 years now, and she's flawless. Alright, I'm putting it in right now. I'm going to put in 3 quarts and change, almost 4 quarts. Now I'll start her up. Not start her up, I'm going to make sure there's no visible leaks. And once that, I'll disconnect that hose. And you'll see how I flush it into a gallon empty jug. Alright guys, this is it. I got actually 4 quarts, the whole gallon inside that pan. And like I said, this tube coming out of the transmission, which is driver's side, is going to go into the intake of the radiator. Alright, then it's going to flow that way, and then that bottom hose is going to go to my transmission cooler out in front of the condenser. As you can see, that far right tube of the transmission is already disconnected. Passenger side, that's going to be the return going to the transmission pan. Now when you do this flush, you gotta be careful. I already got that hose disconnected, and it's already in my gallon jug. Some of the oil already came out. I had it plugged up with my finger, and I dropped it in there, let go of my finger. So this is gonna be draining. I'm gonna drain at least close to maybe 3/4 of a gallon, because all I have now is just 4 quarts left, and the pan takes 3 quarts and change. So I'm gonna start her up, and a couple of seconds, once I get to about maybe, I don't know, a couple of seconds, I would say about 10 seconds worth, or maybe even 5, because this thing pumps pretty quick. So I'll start her up, watch my gallon jug, and then I'll probably shut her off and then call it a day. That's my flush right there. The whole system takes 7 quarts. So I'm gonna start her up. You're gonna see this gallon jug. Fill her up. All right. I'm gonna start this bad boy. Okay. Start them up. Go here. As you can see, it's already filling up. Yep, she's filling. And I'll stop it right there. So that way I don't fry up that pump. Alright. Got almost there. I'm going to check out the dipstick and fill in some more. And that's the process, little by little. If you got more, get more gallon jugs, depending how severely dirty your transmission fluid is. But as you can see, mine is absolutely cherry red. So she is. I always maintain it cherry red. I'll never let it go with that baby discolor the fluid. So if yours is really brown to black that I have seen in other transmissions, you need a good maybe, let's see, for a 12, 16. Yeah, probably 4 or 5 gallons worth. Once you also install the transmission cooler, which is right there in front. And that's the whole process. Once it's all flushed out, shut her off, tighten up that hose to that line, top it off, and we're good to go, brother. We'll check for leaks once everything's all said and done. Over here, as soon as I shut her off, I took out the dipstick, and you still got almost an inch, 3/4 of an inch touching the tube. So I would have should have left it running, but just no risk of running that transmission pump dry. So I could have left it run another maybe 5 seconds, give or take, or another 10. So maybe in total about 15 seconds worth, or 20. Then shut her off real quick to prevent that transmission pump from sucking up dry and damaging it. And just top it off. Keep flushing it if you got, like I said, severely dirty transmission fluid. Run it 10-15 seconds, shut her off, keep filling it in until you see bright red coming out on that gallon jug that you're discharging. Then you stop everything and top it off to the correct temperature. Once it's cold, it's got to be at the cold mark. Drive it around. Once it reaches a good highway temperature, it should be on the top 2 cross lines right there. Okay. The first 2 right there, cross marks, are cold mark, and above that is full hot. So right now, I'm going to fill it up, top it off at the cold mark, check for leaks, and I'll drive it around highway, good 10 minutes or so, come back, and she should be up there. Also, I'm going to put my scanner tool on there, so let's see how cold this baby is. Right now, it's about a good almost 74, 75 degrees with 50% humidity, so it's not that scorching hot out. Okay, I managed to find another 1.5 quart of transmission fluid, so I'm gonna flush some more. And I'm going to drain more into the bucket down there. I'm going to start the car. And spit out some more. And as you can see, we're emptying out good. Shut her off, see how it is, how it looks. Alright, I'm gonna Check my dipstick here. See how she looks. And we still got fluid right up to here, so I could have started up. I could have left it more running. So I'm gonna start her up again, maybe another 5 seconds. Trying to get that fluid to touch right there at the tip. Then stop flushing. Should be pretty close. So let me clean this up, wipe it off, and start it again. Yeah. Start her up. 4 seconds. Okay. And it's right at the tip. So that's it. Now I'm gonna secure the hose down there. Put the hose clamp and then top it off for a cold fill. This hose is going to go back into that passenger side transmission return, and we just flushed our whole tranny without damaging the internal suction pump running it dry. Yeah. Okay, now I'm going to connect this to the barbed inlet for the transmission. You can see there's a barb right there on the end and another barb connection on the other side. Alright, push that in. So she goes. Then we'll secure it with our clamp right there. It's already secured in there. We're good. Take care of this hose right here. So she's looking good. All right. And that's that. I'm gonna tighten up with the ratchet. And transmission is doing good. There's no leaks nowhere, so we're good. Installation success. I'm gonna top it off, cold mark, and I'll drive it around. And then I'm gonna be doing exhaust work on this baby as well. I did mine a while back. So donut right behind the engine. So I got all the parts. Donut. Bolts, springs, converter, oxygen sensors, resonator tailpipe, all them goodies. Hopefully I'll install it tomorrow and you can see the process how I did it as well. Alright, right now I'm going to top it off and tighten this up with this baby. Okay, I got these bolts. Put some anti-seize coating on them. Got one already partially started. I'm gonna put the other one right up there. And just secure your skid plate cover. Tighten it up and only snug so that way you don't risk of snapping these delicate bolts. Once it's on there, a good 1/8 of a turn, if that. That's all you need, it ain't going nowhere. tighten them up, and that's it. And I'll lower down this vehicle and top it off. Alrighty guys, road test. It's almost 9 o'clock this evening, still got some daylight. I already got in about a good 4 miles and change riding around. It's about 72 degrees outside. Scanner hooked up, and the transmission temperature is at 156 with our intake air of 88 degrees. Coolant temperature is 185. So she is good. Hopefully you can read the status there. But the automatic transmission oil temperature, she's at 155, hovering. Intake air, 88 degrees almost. Doing at 60 miles per hour. Engine speed, 2600. So we're good. I'll see how she behaves. Temperature's up in the 90s. Right now the air side is nice and comfortable. Alright, thanks for watching the video repair, or actually video maintenance of transmission drain and flush. Hopefully it works out for all you bread box lovers, toaster guys. And any questions, comment down below. I'll be glad to help you out. Take care, and long live our first generation XB toasters. Until next time, guys.